Welcome to a very special episode of the Comic Book Strategic Investment Podcast. I am your host, Nico, and today we are joined with one of my favorite independent writers, Kasey Pierce. Will you please introduce yourself to our live audience?
Hi, I am Kasey Pierce. And everything you've heard about me is true, so long as it's good. So I am a creator and brand ambassador for Sourcepoint Press, which I believe is one of the now top 3 independent publishing companies in the world. I'm very proud to say that because I've been there since 2015. So when it started, there were 3 pillar creators, which was myself, Greg Wright, David Hayes, and then it tiered from there, and other people started to rise with us, and now went from a dog and pony show to this like big multimedia company. And it doesn't 5 years seems like a long time, but it didn't feel like that long to me. It was just like boom. But we sort of I remember the old days when we would just punk rock it across the United States in a van, just all kind of shoved in like sardines and go to all these Comic-Cons. I would do like 22, 23 a year. And now we're doing shows overseas. It's crazy. And I'm so blessed to say that. I'm so excited and proud to say that.
Kasey, it's a joy to have you with us. I don't know if you remember this, but we met once in person.
Was it in West Virginia at the Comic-Con?
No, it was in southeastern Ohio. But I was an admirer then of your hustle. You got picked up by a local comic shop manager and toted like an hour and a half down the road to a small regional shop in Ohio. Had just the locals there that were super happy to see you, but I mean it wasn't like there were 500 people in line. And you were incredibly gracious. And we talked a little bit about the schedule that you were keeping. Are you still keeping that kind of just grueling schedule where you're popping around to shops?
Not
COVID,
right now.
Obviously,
before COVID. Yeah, before COVID. The last big one that we squeezed in was C2E2, and I believe that was the last show that I did. And it's interesting because they still haven't canceled New York. And I know that Mike Negan heads up both of those shows. So I'm like, wouldn't that be interesting if he was like the last one out and the first one back in? But that remains to be seen. But they're both excellent shows. But yeah, I was on schedule to do another grueling year. But then, as much as people had to scramble just to survive, what was happening, after 5 years, David said it too. We're tired. And this was, if there's any good that's coming out of this, it's a break.
Yeah, no question about it. So for those who aren't familiar with you, can you kind of tell us how this all started, your love for comics?
Oh, man. So I remember growing up, my brother is 13 years older than me. So I grew up reading whatever he was reading, which was Punisher at the time, Usagi Yojimbo, and then even The Mask, when it was a comic back then, which was nothing like the movie. And then, of course, a lot of liquid television, like The Max, was one of our favorite shows. Comics like that. And then I kind of grew into Conan the Barbarian. I love sword and sorcery pieces. But my biggest influences in terms of literature didn't come from comics. They come from writers like Robert Heinlein, sci-fi prophets. So
very interesting. Yeah. So tell people how the heck does somebody who's in high school now, maybe they're an English major at their local community college or undergraduate university, and they secretly all they really want to do is tell stories in comic books. How do they begin to do something like that?
They just do it, honestly. Well, it depends if you are a writer or an artist. But if you're both, God bless you. But they do have, the thing is, if you're going to write something, just sit down and write it. And I've seen so many comic scripts different formats that some of the industry greats, I've had a chance to look at their comic strips. I'm like, this is more primitive than you would imagine. And now I work in editing, so I see all different kinds of formats with Red Pen Media. But what I would say, there is the Chicago International School of Comics that you can do online, and it goes through key points in creation and a lot of continuing education workshops, and it also touches on some industry stuff as well. But I also post on my Instagram. I have a IGTV account, or the sector of Instagram, where I've made several videos on advice in the industry, the things that they don't tell you going into it, based on my panel, which became wildly popular, which is called "Good Luck with That." And yeah, exactly. But it's about how to direct sell in indie comics, and that's something that they don't tell you. They focus on the creative part, but they don't focus on the marketing. And everything you think you know, you don't. Because once you get out here, you're like, oh, I have a thing, I have a book. Listen, I'm a writer, and people go, who gives a shit? And it's hurtful to hear at first. But it's about how to not only sell to the patrons, but how to sell your work to a publisher. You need to know that, because you also need to know whether your idea is marketable or not. And that takes a lot of being honest with yourself. So the creative process is a lot more than just, writing to your personal interest, which, don't get me wrong, that is what you should be doing. But keep in mind, if you do want to publish something like this, you got to know the market too. So I have several videos that are absolutely free on my Instagram, and anybody who wants to reach out with questions, I highly encourage it. Go ahead and DM me anywhere, and I can help you out. Yep, KCD writes. Yep.
Yeah, so can we talk a little bit about Red Pen Media?
Yes, absolutely. So Red Pen Media, we offer editing, proofreading, copywriting services, and one-on-one creative advising, which a lot of it kind of pertains to, okay, you have a thing, how do you put the wheels in motion? Or what, some people come to me and say, I have this idea I've been sitting on for 10 years, and I don't know if I want it as a prose or a comic, or what I should do with it. How should I draw it? How should I market it? Should I do a Kickstarter? Should I not do a Kickstarter? And those are a lot of fun. And those are only $35 an hour. I never go over an hour. That's, I think maybe 45 minutes just to give you the key points and figure out what you want to do with your story. And then comic scripts under 25 pages is $75. And I do offer student rates as well, which those are negotiable. And that includes proofreading, content editing, and a final look at letters as well, because I feel like that's very important. Nothing goes out the door with my name on it unless I see it first.
Love it. I really admire what you do. I write for a living, but I don't write fiction because it's just too hard. And the people that are able to do it in a captivating way, the way that you do.
I was forced to. I didn't either. I was a snarky blogger. That's what I was.
And that's how this all started?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you take us back?
Oh, yeah. Let's take you back to the evolution. I started out, that's why it's facebook.com/CosmicKasey, both with K's. I'll always be cosmic. But people know me as that from, back in 2014, before I was a writer. And I was a Comic-Con persona. I even had a hashtag called Fishnets and Sneakers, because I had big hair, kind of like Elvira, and a big bow. And I would go around, people would know who I was. And I was doing artist interviews and, interviewing my friends and trying to get their work out there. And I would do snarky commentary on the Comic-Con scene. It kind of carved out my voice that way. And it wasn't until I started blogging a chapter a month, just kind of dabbling in fiction, of a sci-fi series called The Prophecy Effect. Now, I had never written fiction in my life. It was just an experiment, which later became Nora. And Tony Maiello. Wow. Oh, what's that?
I just said, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's weird, right? So Tony Maiello of Rocketing Studios had approached me, who was a fan of The Prophecy Effect and what I was doing. And he said, from reading this, I think you can write horror. And I said, I don't really write fiction. That's not what I do. I'm a blogger. That's my thing. And he's like, well, write me a short horror story, 4 pages. So I gave him 4 pages. And then he signed me to a book. And that 4-page story is Dollface in Pieces of Madness. And this was the first release of Pieces of Madness. And it's funny because when I read reviews about Pieces, people say, I love the book. So what happened with Dollface? I'm like, because that's the first story I've ever really written, and it was terrible. And then, of course, that saw a re-release later. So let's go to Fantasticon Toledo, the very first show that they had. And
what year was that?
That was 2015, no, 2014.
Okay.
Late 2015. And it was in the fall. And Travis McIntyre had just taken over as editor-in-chief of Sourcepoint Press because the original proprietors, Joshua Werner, who is, of course, our art director now, and Trico Luckens, they were still a pivotal part of the company, but Travis had just taken over, and we all knew each other. And he said he noticed that I was selling out of these books at Comic-Cons. Now, we're talking about a 5-story little prose, real, low-res cover, and no pictures, and it was gaining a subterranean following because it wasn't, I wasn't an avid horror reader at the time, so these stories were just different, and they had sort of a reflection of the human condition, and they were very personal to me, and I think I found a following that way, which was really cool. It just happened, and I'm so grateful. But anyway, I'm selling out of at Comic-Cons. Travis takes notice, and he said, hey girl, like he does. And he's like, I need you to write me a comic. And I said, I don't write comics. That's not what I do. I write prose. I'm a novelist now with my, flimsy 5 short stories. And he's like, well, that's BS. So I need you to just pitch me anything. And I said, okay. So I went back to the prophecy effect, narrowed it down to the main character. And the prophecy effect was written because I kind of like the same with Nora. I kind of combined some things. So I'm obsessed with the nervous system and how it works because when I was 26, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And you're not, you can't tell me that you don't know why I have what I have. I'm going to investigate. So I became obsessed with that. But I've also dabbled in what modern society would call metaphysics now. And I thought, well, what is a coma? Well, to me, it's somewhere cold and desolate in space between life and death. And I always say the CIA thing came from just way too many NPR broadcasts. But and so I narrowed it down to the main character, and I had never even seen a comic script before. And I had the honor and privilege of knowing the late, great Gary Reed at the time of Caliber, who wrote Dead World, of course. And I had a chance to peek at a Dead World script. And I'm like, well, so this is kind of like a movie, right? So that's why the first issue of Norah is such a slow burn, because to me, it was the first 5 minutes of a film. And it's set up very nonlinear. And yep, there it is, issue 1. Cover art by Jason Westlake, illustrated by Sean Seal, hand painted by Sean Seal. So it's, but still, I don't think I would have done it any other way. But it plays very cinematically because I wrote it for film. And yeah.
So Nora is incredibly personal for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Nora, I'll explain the premise first. So Nora, the story is like an X-Files meets Starship Troopers. It's kind of an immersive sci-fi, very atmospheric. I always call it a cigar and bourbon sci-fi. It's a slow burn. And if you like your sci-fi like that, you will love this. So Nora has the ability to delve into the mind's eye, to retrieve you from or help you cross over in the event of a coma. She obtains the ability while working in pathogenic development for the CIA, developing bioweapons. And I don't have any experience in creating bioweapons, so but it is based on real science, though. I made sure of that, and so there was a lot of researching some very disturbing stuff. But for Nora, she is, she carries a tragic demeanor, and she is very mercenary about what she does. And I always called myself a mercenary. Like, I wouldn't cloud I wouldn't get swept up in emotion. Like I'm not emotionless. I'm very emotional, and but I don't get swept up in the wrong emotions to cloud, my ability to do what's necessary. I wouldn't let anything cripple me. If something had to be done, it had to be done. And now I'm noticing in my life as I discover stoicism that's what stoicism is. But I always called it being a mercenary, and that's what she is. And people just think she's kind of cold and heartless, but she's not. She's actually, kind of putting a lid on all these tragic events that happened in order not to explode. So she's like, listen, I got to keep a lid on this. And so that's why she comes off the way that she does. But you realize, and it starts to unfold why she carries such a tragic demeanor through a lot of flashback sequences. So.
Yeah. We're about to get a new issue of Nora, right?
Yes,
in volume
absolutely. 2. Absolutely. This one is illustrated by Kelly O'Hara. And her roots are in manga. So there's a little bit of like a Tokyo Pop edge to it. She's also a huge Blade Runner fan, which you can totally tell. So she fit the piece perfectly. And this is her first comic. I'm so proud of her. So we're going to volume 2. Issues 1 through 3 are in previews now. Issue 4 will be in there in August. So just, a matter of a week or so, not even.
Without spoiling the plot, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
In the second volume? Yeah. So the people that she thought really supported her, had her back throughout her career, turned face, and she's realizing that the friends that she thought she had, she really doesn't. She is actually alone in a lot of this. A lot of psychedelic stuff happening in here. A lot of strange, because we delve into also the intergalactic threat that you will find in volume 1, which isn't a spoiler. We delve a lot into the intergalactic threat and where they come from, the origin stories. There's a lot of heavy, weird religious overtones. Dwight Eisenhower's in it, and it gets insane. Like volume 2 is nuts. It's graphic. It's Tarantino-esque, and I just took it to a whole nother world. So,
is that your cat?
Yes, this is Cornelius. Hello. A lot of people know him on social media. He's a good boy. But yeah, volume 2 is, and it's crazy because the way Kelly paints, and she said, am I doing this right? I go, don't worry about doing it right. Just do it the way you do it. And so it's very dreamlike. One scene kind of fades into the other. You're not going to find gutters and panels. This is just a flowing story. And it's visually just stunning, disturbing, and it's a conversation piece if you have it on your wall, which she will be having an art show after COVID, because we had one planned for June where she was going to sell the original pages. Yeah, we were all geared up for that. And we will. I know that we will, probably middle of next year, maybe even online. But I would like people to see how beautiful this is up close and personal. But even in the comic, there's such a charm to it because you can see the brush strokes. And she was concerned about that. I go, don't be concerned about that at all. This is very organic. And it's gorgeous. And I couldn't be more proud of her for her first comic. It's unbelievable.
Wow. So you've got some more in the pipeline, right?
Yes, I do. So we did do Cirrus. Cirrus came out after the first volume of Nora, so it was kind of like an in-between. Now Cirrus is currently 3 self-contained stories. It's like Norse mythology meets the craft in the style of heavy metal. They're sexy, gory Viking witch fables, and it was my fun series. Nora is very dark and introspective and heavy, and I just want to have some fun. So it's just Viking witches kicking ass on the southern shores of Iceland. I love the fact that they're self-contained stories, but if you choose to get all 3, which I encourage you, then you're going to see some reoccurring characters. I mean, they're all friends. And Viking witches, I wanted to harken back to a time, because I read some heavy metal, the magazines that were all over my brother's floor, back to a time when, barbaric Nordic women were strong and painted on the sides of vans. That was something really cool and something I think that appealed to both sexes. Like, women felt really empowered by that. And I wanted to harken back to that time. And I love these stories. Now, that's illustrated by J.J. Cott. So speaking of J.J. Cott, that's where we get to our next piece. So he is also the illustrator, which we're having a meeting tomorrow, of the other people who live here. Now, that is, I was just telling you that I'd never like to say magnum opus, but I'm going to, because I always think that also implies that it's really the last thing you're going to do. But this is a very, very important personal piece to me. It is a paranormal space opera about Alzheimer's. And my mother, of course, is affected by Alzheimer's. And so it's a fun space, come on, cat. It's a fun space adventure, but it sheds light on what it is like not to only have Alzheimer's, but it tells the caretaker's story, because we don't talk about those things in polite conversation. Anytime somebody says, well, she has Alzheimer's, people go, oh, nobody has like, and we ask, how are you doing? But nobody gets the nitty gritty of it. And it's hard. It's really, really hard to take care of someone with Alzheimer's. And it's the long goodbye. And I'm still saying goodbye. And so I wanted to tell their stories. And so a lot of it is based on true events, what I went through with my mom, what I went through with my dad, and because anyone can tell you who deals with Alzheimer's, once the person gets it, the whole family gets it. And it just throws everything upside down.
That's something we unfortunately have in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really anxious to read your work. I think it's important for people in a way that, can't quite capture with words. So I want to thank you for telling that story. It means a lot to me. Of course. When can we expect to hear it?
Oh man, J-Cat is like boom, boom, boom. Like I always say he's his own project manager. He's excellent. He does it with a smile on too. So very soon, I would assume, probably, hopefully, maybe by the end of this year, we'll see. But that's what I'm gunning for. But if not, January at the latest, probably. But he's, let's see. We're working on it now in July. Yeah, maybe late fall, maybe early winter. That's what I'm hoping for, so long as the world doesn't collapse. we're holding on strong still.
Now, is your mom still communicative? I hope you don't mind me asking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of incorporated some of that into the piece, and I hope I'm not spoiling one of the plot lines.
No, that's fine. So I can give a little bit away.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. So the little girl grows up in the 60s, and she's ostracized because she's a geek. She loves sci-fi, but she's also grows up in a broken home. Stepdad beats on mom, town drunk. Back then, the old chestnut. And so to cope with a life of no friends in a broken home, she escapes to her backyard play world, in which she manifests a Starfleet, in which she's a part of, where she's important, where she plays a role, where she means something to people. And they go on these space adventures, and worlds collide when, I'm going to say, at the time when she loses the age of innocence, and she disappears from them, and they disappear from her, and they scour the galaxy looking for her. And it isn't until she slips into an early stage of Alzheimer's that they start to connect again, and the worlds start to collide, and they start to find her. They're kind of like skimming each other, and they become the other people who live here. And of course, some people will know what I'm talking about, because there's some people that say that exact thing. Well, it's the other people who live here. Well, it's dementia or Alzheimer's patients seeing people that aren't there, or maybe are.
So it's clear to me that you have figured out how comics can be a therapeutic exercise.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Comics can be anything you want it to be, really. I mean, you can write for an audience, and you can just keep the audience in mind the whole time, or you can let the audience find you. I think there's a mix of the two is very important because you also want something marketable. But you know, like Sirius, I always joke that it was a total Mary Sue. And yeah, because I wanted to have fun. You know, sex and violence is cool, and they are fun, and they're beautiful too. But then you switch gears and you're like, well, I want to write something that's, you know, I had to get it out. And like, and you know, people think they know, but they really don't. It can be a nightmare. So I wanted to make a fun space opera to kind of flip it and give people hope. So it's kind of a life after death story as well.
It's beautiful. Talk about growing up in the comics world, because it sounds like you've done a lot of that from Fishnets and a Beehive
Oh
to one
yeah,
of the premier indie writers in comics.
yeah, crayons to perfume, baby.
Yeah, how'd that transformation happen?
Mentors. Become a lit roller of mentors. Shut up and listen. That is what you do. And I had really great mentors like Travis McIntyre and David Hayes, and get used to the word no. And the editing process, I think, helped a lot with that too. It kind of breaks down your ego. And I mean, I love the editing process, don't get me wrong, but I learned so much from it. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things that I just didn't know. You know, even Gary Reed, when he was still alive, he helped mold me as well. And, you know, Tony Maiello. And, but I think that has a lot to do with it. And just listen, keep an ear to things and watch, like sit back and watch the logistics of it and know that you can do it, but maybe it's not the way you think that it goes. Just, you know, it was just a whole lot of asking questions too, asking all the right questions. And I remember I was picking David Hayes' brain, who's one of my biggest mentors, the creator of Rotten Tail, at a Comic-Con once. I think it was our first Motor City. And he gave me a great piece of advice. He said, don't pigeonhole yourself into being one kind of writer. You are a writer. So write a screenplay, write poetry, write a stage play, write prose, write comics, write everything that you can. And just keep practicing. And you know, I feel like I've almost written it all. And I love it because now I know how to channel my emotions the right way to paper.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your regimen? I mean, what do you do?
My regimen.
Yeah, in other words, do you try to write every single day? Do you write during fixed times in the day? Do you keep like a 9 to 5? Like how does the creative process go?
Up here. Always. It's always going up here. And then like that's for me, you know, and it comes out as just one big sneeze. I know when it's right, because if I push too hard, that's when, now I don't believe in writer's block. I used to use that as a crutch. But really, sometimes if you really want to write something, sit down and, as I always say, write absolute garbage. Write stuff that you think no one will ever read. It's just you. You go back, you clean it up. That's probably exactly what you wanted to say.
Interesting. Now, are you a student of like, I don't know how to describe it, like, you know, people like Joseph Campbell, like wrote Story, or like other sort of, you know, kind of like seminal works on screenwriting or script writing or storytelling? I mean, is that the kind of stuff that you try to digest on the side?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my clients inspire me as well. You know, I'm like, wow, these ideas are like, I'm stealing ideas, but I'm like, the way you write, I like your voice. But really, it really came from the editing process. And that's what inspired me to pick up the editing as well. Because these editors over time and working with so many editors really carved out the voice that I have now. And that's important. Amazing. You can tell when I've written something, you know, and I never had a voice before. And people, you know, and the editor takes something and they say, listen, I know what you meant to say. This is me, especially in the early days. But, you know, let me just turn it up just a little bit. You meant to say it like this. I'm like, wow, yeah, that sounds a lot better. And then after a while, writing comic scripts became like playing the piano. It's that way for me now. Just, just going for it. No fear, thanks to a lot of great editors who helped me along the way and gave me that voice and gave me that confidence. So, I thank people like David Hayes, Leah Letterman, and Allison O'Toole. Goodness, she worked on Cirrus, and she is one of the trailblazers of indie comics in Toronto. If you are in Canada and you in the comic scene and you don't know Allison O'Toole, you really aren't a part of the comic scene. She does an anthology of women horror stories called Wayward Sisters and other projects like that. But she's very thorough, absolutely phenomenal. So all these editors that helped shape me, and I kind of plucked something from each one, these personal touches. And now, because I appreciate so much how I was helped, that's what I want to do. And I love inspiring people. I really, really do. And that's kind of what I've become after a while. Like I'm a direct sales consultant. I'm an editor. I'm just here to help people. And during the COVID crisis, I know people were looking for work, and people are kind of freaking out because they're going on unemployment. So sometimes I will list editors, colorers, inkers, anybody looking for work, especially on Instagram, because that's like, a portfolio. So I would just tag them, and every once in a while I will still add things to my story that I think are cool. Like, oh, it's a cool art piece, or you're open for commissions. Cool. Any way I can help without stressing myself out too in the process.
Yeah, so you and I guess, have a lot in common. I too am a big fan of mentorship, having mentors, and mentoring other people. Can you talk about some of the up-and-coming writers that you think have real promise, people that you work with, that I'm confident you obviously have people you're trying to mentor along the way who have less experience in the comic scene?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I know Stephanie Maynard's one of them. She writes horror. She writes prose and comics. So Stephanie Maynard's one of them. Let's see. People within our company. Frank Gogol. He's got a lot of hard hustle, and he's got some real heavy hitters just right out the gate with grief.
He's the hardest working man in show business. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life.
Yeah, he got it from me. He got it from me.
It's unbelievable.
He might tell you that too, but Bob Sally. Bob Sally is just out here killing it too with Broken Gargoyles, and he writes with his heart of his sleeve as well. There's a pool of talent, and I know I'm missing people, and I'm sorry if I have, but I know that Kaylin Smith, she has a wonderful new book out. Gosh, what is the name of it? She's gonna kill me. Kaylin Smith.
It's okay. I'll give people something.
Just follow her. Follow her on Twitter. She has some amazing work as well. Gosh, man, I wish I had a list in front of me because I'd be like, oh, these are all my friends.
Yeah. What's funny is you were one of the few people that wasn't like, so can I have a list of the questions? And I was just like,
oh no, cold interviews are always the best.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that people would always ask that for me. I was like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Do you collect?
I used to. Golly, yeah, I used to collect a lot of Dark Horse, Conan the Barbarian especially. I don't so much anymore because I'm too busy writing it. Do I what?
Did you keep any of your books?
Yeah, I do have them. And that's the thing, is they take up space because I've got I have a store downstairs of all my books. Literally, it's set up like a store. So a lot of Conan the Barbarian. I was reading Boom's Planet of the Apes for a while. That was a great series. I have a few of those trades. Huge Planet of the Apes fan, by the way. I'm just, that's why Cornelius, my cat, that's why his name Cornelius. And then what do I have downstairs? Golly, of course, all my friends. But yeah, how am I forgetting this? Low from Greg Cicchini, Black Science. When that came out, oh my God, I ate that up. I love Black Science from the first issue. Rick Remender, that was just That was phenomenal. Now I want to go back.
Yeah. So, are you real in touch with kind of like the collector market for comics? I mean, does that kind of make it's? I mean, it seems like when we met again, it was very briefly, but I had 2 copies, and I was like, no, don't sign that one.
Right? Yeah. The collectors have taught me about the collector's market, right? So I know people who know how to work the collector's market, but me, I'm like, oh, you want to do a variant?
Frank Gogol.
Cool.
Frank Gogol works the collector's market better than any person I've ever seen.
And Garrett is another great writer. He's got a lot. He's always got something going on. And I implore you to check out Garrett Gunn if you can. But he knows how to work the collector's market too. But me, I'm just like, when collectors would come to the table, and now that Nora single issues are technically out of print, you know, people come up with the gloves and go through and I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, that's cool. Oh, you're going to buy like 20 of them and you want me to sign all 20. Oh, you're going to hawk these, aren't you? Oh, that's cool.
Everyone else, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's fine. You know, I'm not that precious about it. Like, if it gets obscene, like if you're like, hey, I'm getting 100 of these, I'll be like, come on, man. But if you're getting like 20, cool. At least I've got some value somewhere.
Where do we get the Nora swag is what I want to know. Why don't I have a Nora t-shirt?
Oh, yeah, dude. How come you don't have the Nora t-shirt?
I mean, I need a lot of help.
You are late to the party, my friend. No. So you can get this at sourcepoint.press. Just type in Nora and all the books come up and the t-shirt comes up as well. Now, this is a men's cut because the women's cut, like they do the cap sleeve thing, not into that. So this is a men's small. I like this. I ordered a few for my friends. I know that they've been selling like hotcakes, so I'm really, really grateful. Of course, this features the cover art from Jason Westlake of issue 1 of volume 2.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, thank God for Bryan McClay. He does a better job than I could ever do, and is kind and gracious enough to donate his services. He does things like this and provides us with the visual tools to make my ramblings make a little bit more sense. So thank you, Bryan. We are appreciative.
I was going to say, I'm looking at the side here. Talk about Sourcepoint and her seeing it grow along the way. Oh, man. We talked about that a little bit in the beginning. But yeah.
So you have seen really the company explode, right? I mean, you were there in the infancy of Sourcepoint.
Oh my God. I call myself Grandma Sourcepoint. I was there in the beginning. But yeah, it's just been so cool. And it was a lot of getting in the trenches and doing a lot of just hand-to-hand sales, you know, direct, because what Sourcepoint did in the beginning, and we still do, is we put emphasis and we see the value in the creator meeting experience. Because if you think about it, before Comic-Cons became oversaturated, when people saved up their money to go to the Comic-Con, that's what they came for. You know, they wanted to meet the creators. And, you know, so we put emphasis on the brand. If you are part of Sourcepoint, you are a part of the brand. And you want to make genuine connections with your readers. And that's something that doesn't get old. I absolutely love it. I love people. I love talking to people. I love talking with creators. And I love when my story, you know, resonates with someone. And the great thing about Sourcepoint is we also have this together we rise mentality, because we all know if we make it, or the company makes it, we make it, and we are the company. So when we sell, like I know that my stuff will sell great with David Hayes' stuff. And we wrote each other's forwards too, which is kind of cute. But yeah, those are the shirts. Yeah, we would team up with other creators, and we're a family. I mean, that's what we are. I mean, during comic conventions here in Michigan, we've got like 10 people staying in our living room, you know, punk rocking it in like air mattresses. Like we still do that. You know, not during COVID, but you know, earlier this year. Everybody comes into what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. My understanding is you guys have a profit sharing agreement, right, with Sourcepoint? Like a profit sharing agreement. I mean, it's not simply a business model, but they actually provide compensation to the creators based on the sales. Can you talk a little bit about that?
A little bit. So you can, there are profit sharing agreements in most, and I'm going to say 90% because every contract is different. The reason a lot of people, when they come to Sourcepoint, they stay because a lot of our contracts are creator owned. Meaning, like, if you don't like what we're doing here, fine, you can take your work and leave. No harm, no foul. But you know what? We pay our creators. We pay you guys royalties, and we give really great deals for you guys. And the thing is, if you come out here and you love your baby like you're supposed to, and push and hustle, then guess what? You know, if your book does really well, you know, we'll talk about the next project, and when I say that we're a family, like, that's not a joke. You know, we team up and collaborate and, you know, share ideas and stuff like that. So, and now we hail from all over, by the way. You know, we were just Michigan, and now we got creators, you know, as far as California, Vegas, Boston, Russia. You know, it's crazy. But yeah, there is a profit sharing agreement that you can buy into the company if you want to. You know. We don't say no to money.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah. There's so much opportunity. There is so much opportunity with Sourcepoint, and you can't compare it to any other company, really. I don't think, you know, and I've shopped around. And the thing is, I'm true blue Sourcepoint. I'm all about the brand. But somebody asked me at Bleeding Cool, they said, well, would you ever work for the big two? And I'm like, no, I hate money. Well, yeah. And I see value in that because it's name association, right? So, you know, Kasey, a creator for Sourcepoint, you know, also does work for DC, and that helps everybody out, you know. And Travis only wants to see people succeed. He genuinely does, and he's so good to us. He really is. You know, I give Travis a lot of shit, but I love him to death.
Nice. Let me ask you this. What do you see as the future of Sourcepoint? I mean, where do you guys, where are you in 5 years, 10 years from now?
Oh, ruling the world, of course. 5 years, we keep growing as a multimedia company. I can see us having a slew of film titles under our belts as well, because, you know, we have distribution through Shoreline Entertainment now. And it started with Rotten Tail. And the only reason that things kind of slowed down was, you know, because of COVID and things like that. But that saw a theatrical run, you know, starring Cornelius from SG1. And that really changed the game for us. And so we're going to keep changing the game with all, you know, film opportunities, gaming. Now we have Deepwater Games as one of our imprints. And games, especially right now during COVID, you know, if there was something to focus, and they have done a phenomenal job of that imprint, and sort of they just melded with us, you know, and we keep stacking, you know, these sectors of our empire, and the empire keeps growing. I mean, we're going to be Rome in 5 years.
Yeah, well, thank you, because you finished my thought. That's precisely what I was hoping you were going to talk about. It seems to be that within the collector community, people will not give a second look at a book these days unless they think it's got an opportunity for a television show. They think it's got an opportunity for a movie. They see comic books as storyboards for potential films, and you know, there's just fewer and fewer avid readers. How do you think those relationships that you guys have forged at Sourcepoint are going to affect your ability to get new readers and new collectors picking up your books?
Oh, I think it's only going to help, because you are always going to find, I think the film industry and comic books, and I know at first, you know, with the boom of superhero films, people were really worried about that. Like, oh, they're only going to see the movie. That's not true. You have to see the value in brand association, I want to say, franchise association. So, like, if you enjoyed, you know, Captain America, you will enjoy my book, or you like Star Wars, you like this. So that only helps us out. But in terms of, do I think that one is going to suffer because of the other? Absolutely not. Because it helps to put that label on there that says, you know, inspired by, you know, by the book, and then vice versa. You say, "Oh, this inspired the film," and they're like, "Oh, I know that film," and they'll buy it just to have it as a conversation piece, or they'll buy it as a gift for one of their family members. And it's all in the way you market it too. So I don't think I only think it helps, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and perhaps I was inartful when I tried to explain that. In other words, do you think that the potential for option deals, the potential for video games or television or film will drive collectors, people who want 20 copies signed, so that they can put them in encapsulated plastic hardbacks? That'll drive them to be buying your books, to reading your books?
Yes, because it happened. It happened with Nora. When Bleeding Cool put out the press release that Nora was film optioned, eBay just exploded. It really did. And I watched it, and I thought it was the most hysterical thing I'd ever seen in my life. To be honest, I'm like, really? But it's cool. It helps me. It helps my name. It helps my brand. It helps collectors. It helps stores. I mean, sorry, my cats are being buttholes. But it only helps. Yeah, there it is. There it is. And when that hit, it was just like, I was looking at eBay. I'm like, really? That much for my comic? Okay. But that day was a really good day. I was very proud. And it was surreal. And I don't think even after I signed the contract that it became real until Bleeding Cool put up this press release. I'm like, wow, it's out there. People know. And it's going to happen, because we have contracts.
Can you give us any kind of update on that?
Well, the COVID world kind of slowed everything down.
Can you give us a little update on
that? Well, let's see. I know that we were talking about concepts, and we were talking about I can tell you what's in the vein of. Think Sarah Connor, the very Sarah Connor approach. Sarah Connor from T2, of course. So it does have a lot of Terminator vibes. And when I spoke to the director, that's what he said. So we were supposed to do casting, and like I said, everything slowed down because of COVID. But I believe in divine timing. I really do. And I'm just enjoying the ride. And wait, and it's gonna be that much sweeter. So we did have a trailer for it. And thanks, J-Mac. I appreciate that. We did have a trailer for it. And that was at the Rotten Tail premiere. They showed it, and I didn't know they were going to show it. So you can still find somewhere on my Instagram or my Facebook my reaction video, because of course other people were in on it, and I just died. It was a teaser trailer with a voiceover, and it was just beautiful. And that was another surreal moment too. I'm just so blessed, really. I'm just so grateful to be here. And wonderful things just keep happening for me and Sourcepoint left and right. And we have great leadership. And but that's the only updates I can really give right now, because it's really the only updates that there are.
Yeah, Kasey, you're talking about your magnum opus, and I get the feeling you're just getting started.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. Golly, I feel like my whole life has been leading up to the other people who live here. I really do, because we are going to have a third installment of the Nora series. We're going to go into volume 3, and then I think we're going to cap it off and move on. But yeah, I always say like, oh, I'm tired. I'm not going to do comics. I'm going to go to prose, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then here comes another comic book, Yeah.
Where do you see a live action iteration of any of your other works other than Nora?
I hope the other people who live here. I think that would be Sirius would be fun too. I think Sirius would make a great Netflix show. Viking Witches, that'd be cool. I think, again, and I wrote it to the fans of History Channel's Vikings, and anybody who likes sword and sorcery and Conan the Barbarian, things like that. But my friend Heather, who is a huge Vikings fan, she became the aesthetic inspiration for Kadira in the first book. And she's actually on our candle that we had for the Kickstarter. We had like a prayer candle, and her face in a red cloak with runes on it was one of the rewards, and that was super cool. That's in her house too, right next to a big old Viking horn.
Any plans to do, exclusive variants, a Kickstarter, some sort of exclusive cover, or other premium options for people like myself who are really excited about the other people who live here?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I would love to.
Can you talk a little bit about that, or that's sort of in the theoretical stage?
Yeah, it's theoretical, but we can talk about possible. What do you want? What do you want to see? I will do it.
I think that your buddy Frank has really captured that in a way that I've never seen anyone do in the independent market. He's taken the entire comic industry by storm, promoting his forthcoming book. And while some may suggest that he's oversaturated in the same way that Peach Momoko is by doing too many of these promotions, I can't say that I wouldn't be excited to see some sort of Kickstarter early with some amount of investment on behalf of those who follow you and really appreciate your work.
No, Cirrus is going to see a Kickstarter. Cirrus will see a Kickstarter for the trade, which will include a fourth story, and we're probably going to do something leather bound for that.
Interesting. That
would be really nice. Something with runes on it. Or the fly logo, which so if you remember the Cirrus Kickstarter, the Kickstarter exclusive cover for Cirrus 1 with the fly on it, that was designed by Frank Gogol.
Nice. So we had Jimmy Palmiotti on the show a couple weeks ago. He indicated that sometimes he prefers to use Kickstarter simply because it provides him with more freedom to do whatever he wants, as opposed to trying to get something through at DC. But it also provides, kind of an easier financial transaction for him. Is that something that you've experienced, or is it kind of an easier to work directly with your publisher, or do they cooperate with the Kickstarter efforts?
Yes, they do. It's a cooperative effort, and really, I've used Kickstarter for the most part to build awareness. That's how you get new readers. And I know that, like I said, we're a team. Creators in Sourcepoint will say, well, give me the link to the Kickstarter. And then they share it with people who have given to their Kickstarters in that email list. And like, hey, if you dig this, you might dig this. Kasey Pierce has a new Kickstarter going on. And these are all the exclusives and rewards. And but yeah, I think the bottom line, when I set a goal, I do it so that we can pay the illustrator, so it's a little easier on Sourcepoint. That's where the base goal is. But of course, we always make way over that. But like the 1,200 mark is where I set the first Cirrus book, just because I want to get Jake Hott paid, and maybe do some other stuff. And I knew it was going to go over, but I'm like, let's just make sure that we're meeting our goal here, because really, this is just an opportune time to grab some new readers. And especially because I was doing sword and sorcery at the time, it was a way departure from Nora. And so I'm looking to build my audience. And I think Kickstarter is the greatest platform to do that.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, my hour is about over. So I promise
you saved your hour.
I promise I'd only keep you hostage for an hour. But what I do want to do is let those who've joined us today and who will watch this video on replay know where they can find you, how they can contribute to you, where they can buy cool swag like that Nora t-shirt, where they can expect to see your forthcoming work. Talk to us a little bit about Red Pen Media, where we can find this kind of stuff, and the value that you provide to a community that's so important to the both of us.
All right. So Red Pen Media, if you need editing, copywriting, or one-on-one creative advising, you can email me or find me on Facebook, Red Pen Media. You can email me at Kasey, Kasey, redpen@gmail.com. That's $75 for a comic script under 25 pages. That includes proofreading, content editing, and even a final look at letters. There are student rates available, and other services are negotiable. $35 an hour for a one-on-one creative advising. So to find me on social media, otherwise you will go to facebook.com/CosmicKasey, both with K's. You can find me on Instagram, KCDWrites. And you can also find me on Twitter, Cosmic Kasey. And you can find I implore you to get the shirt and the Volume 1 trade at Sourcepoint.press. You can also find all 3 Cirrus books there as well. And then order Nora Volume 2, issues 1 through 4 next month, because 4 is going to be featured in previews next month in your local comic shop, because we always want to, we encourage that you just order it in the store to kind of help out our stores who have helped us out so much. So yeah, let's see. Am I anywhere else? LinkedIn, if you want to do anything else professional, that's cool too. I got my resume up there. So yeah, I'm kind of all over, but definitely get those comics ordered into your comic shop.
Okay, and one last bit about the forthcoming Nora film deal. Can you tell us just a smidge more about that?
Oh, it's going to happen. I can tell you that, because there's contracts tied up in it. So it is a guarantee. It's just a matter of time. Everything's just so on hold. I mean, there's really nothing else I can say at this time.
If they want to watch the teaser trailer, how do they see it?
I don't know if I can put it up. Gosh, I don't even know. I know I'm not helping anyone right now, and I'm so sorry. But
it's okay.
If I can. Now, I do have a YouTube. I don't put anything up, but I do have a YouTube account. I'll ask our editor-in-chief, and then I will add the link in the comments. So I should know within the next 24 hours whether I can or not,
Love it. We really appreciate it. You are a breath of fresh air in a community.
Oh, thank you. I love you guys. And again, if anybody has any questions about the industry or pitches or anything like that, because I also help formulate the perfect pitch for your comic book, hit me up. Let's talk. DM me on any of my social media platforms, or email me at kaseyredpen@gmail.com. I'm always willing to help.
Good stuff. Thank you, Kasey Pierce. It's been a privilege.
Oh, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.